Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Garage. Gerald here with you. It is time for the October installment of my early Oscars predictions. Although the word early is becoming less and less relative to these lists as we're getting deeper and deeper into award season, the sad part is I still have not had a chance to see a lot of these films, but I have updated my predictions for the month. It's on the website, and I'm going to go over them with you right now. You can go back and find the video I did last month, which was my first one, where I gave you my initial early Oscars predictions. I'll put a link up here for you. Let's get into what has changed and where I'm sitting mentally right now with some of these Oscar players. We're going to start with Best Picture. As you see, and I have a legend down there in the bottom of the screen for you so you know what these little symbols mean. Nothing has changed with my top spot. Although, I do have a caveat I want to throw in there. So I still have Sean Baker's Anora as the most likely film to get nominated for Best Picture this year. And the purple star indicates that it's also my current prediction to win the category. Now, if you recall, or if you watched my video last month, I actually had another movie winning Best Picture, which was Conclave by Edward Berger. I don't know what's going to happen, but with a lot of the chatter that's come out of the film festivals in the last month and a half or so since I made my previous video, I think that the kind of love around Anora, particularly Mikey Madison's performance, but also Sean Baker's kind of tender direction, which he's typically known for, but has not gotten a lot of gold statues for it. I've got Anora winning Best Picture right now. Now, when I do this video next month, it could be something different. Shooting to second place runner-up with a bullet is The Brutalist. I have not seen that movie either. A lot of people that I respect, pundits and people in the awards community, freaking love this movie. They say that it is tailor-made for Oscars. It was shot in a very specific old-school Hollywood kind of format. Adrian Brody, Guy Pearce, apparently giving performances of their careers, which are pretty storied careers. I am holding out choosing it to win Best Picture until I'm able to see it. But based on what I've heard, The Brutalist is going to be a huge player this Oscar season. Right now, I've got it number 2, most likely to get nominated. I also moved Sing Sing up a little bit. Of course, the true story of these prison inmates who put on theater productions for the other inmates at the jail, starring Coleman Domingo, who I think is going to be a huge player and actor when we get there. I've got Sing Sing at my number 3 still. I think it's just too good of a story to not be an Oscar-y kind of movie. And A24 is being very deliberate with their rollout because this is another one that has not come to my market yet. But they're doing that kind of past lives kind of rollout where it's a little bit here, a little bit there, and then bam, everybody's got it right at the height of award season, which I think will be in November for most people nationwide. Conclave I talked about earlier because I had it as my Best Picture winner and number 2 most likely to get nominated. Last month when I did this, I dropped it down to number 4. I think it's still way too Oscar friendly to not get nominated, so I think it will be in the final 10 without a doubt. I think it's as close as we can be right now to a shoo-in because of just the type of movie that it is. I said this on my last video, the PG rating does worry me a little bit of how far they're going to be able to go with the themes in that film. I've also heard that the ending of the film, which, by the way, I haven't seen this one either, is a bit divisive. And they take some huge swings with that. That's going to piss a lot of people off, apparently, and has pissed people off. But other people really appreciate the effort there by Edward Berger. They loved All Quiet on the Western Front last year. I think this is also going to be a huge BAFTAs player. A lot of times the BAFTAs will kind of predict what the Oscars end up doing. Not always, as we know. But it could happen. I think it's going to be a huge player just in general in award season. And I see it being a pretty easy shoe-in for nomination. Amelia Perez I'm actually seeing next week. I couldn't wait to film the video because I have to do it in October. So I'm going to be seeing that movie at the very, very end of October. So I'll have a lot more to say about it next month when I do my predictions for November. However, I will say being a musical, featuring a lot of actors and actresses from Latino heritage, I think this is... I think it's there. Obviously, I think it's there. I think the musical aspect's really going to help it too with some technical categories. Song, score, production design, costumes, that kind of thing. And when you start to rack up those technical achievements, eventually you're nominated for Best Picture before you know it. Dune Part 2, I moved up a couple spots. This is my personal number one movie of the year. It still is. A 10 out of 10 film for me. And I was just mentioning the technical aspects with Emilia Perez. I think that's what's carrying a movie like Dune Part 2 to a pretty easy nomination. Everything. Effects, costumes, production design, acting, perhaps. Zendaya was great in it. Timothée Chalamet was great in it. Rebecca Ferguson is amazing in the film. The direction of Denis Villeneuve as well. Dune Part 2 is one of those grand films that reminds me a lot of like an Oppenheimer from last year that's just technically so beautiful and strong that it's going to carry itself to a nomination, I think. We have a couple new entries that I'll just kind of go through these last four real quick. Rounding out my top 10, I've got Gladiator 2, Blitz, A Real Pain, and Saturday Night. Gladiator 2 and A Real Pain are movies that I just added to my predictions for Best Picture. Gladiator 2 got, frankly, shocking response, at least to me. Ridley Scott is a filmmaker that I'm not shocked when his movies appeal to people and when people are entertained. But look at a movie like Napoleon. I mean, the guy can do movies like this, but they don't always hit, and particularly with the Academy. Although, I've heard with Gladiator 2 that it is very much on a plane of the original Gladiator, which of course won Best Picture and had a lot of accolades for Ridley Scott. So I added it to my predictions for Best Picture because, frankly, I was surprised when I saw the response coming out of the early test screenings and critic screenings. I'm excited about that because I love the original film. I love Ridley Scott in general. So I do think it's getting its way closer and closer to an Oscar nomination for Best Picture. And we'll talk a little bit about some other categories as we go along here. A Real Pain is the other one that I just entered into my 10. This is the movie directed by Jesse Eisenberg, starring Kieran Culkin in a role that I've heard he absolutely floors people in this performance of Eisenberg's cousin, who is kind of unsavory, but you kind of love to hate him. And we've all had family members or friends like that. And it's kind of a road trip movie. It's a travel film. It looks funny, darkly funny. And I think that these young actors, Culkin, Eisenberg, and then of course Eisenberg being behind the camera here too, I think could push a lot of the kind of middle-aged and below Oscar voters to recognize this film. It does look from the trailers very Oscar-y, although this is another one that I haven't seen. And then Blitz and Saturday Night. Blitz is Steve McQueen. This actually dropped quite a few spaces for me. Where is it? Like, this movie has been in my predictions now. This is, I think, the third year. I'm not even kidding, that I had it in my initial predictions, and it keeps getting pushed back. It kept getting delayed, the pandemic, etc., etc. And now, December of this year, I think, for Blitz. I know some people have seen it, which leads me to believe that it will be rolled out prior to eligibility ending for this Oscar season. Steve McQueen, you can never count out. Saoirse Ronan, it's a war story. It's a period piece. I've seen very, very little with my own eyes that would give me any indication other than just the names attached to it and the premise of the film. I dropped it a few spaces because I'm just getting more and more frustrated that I don't have more to go on of substance, but I love the idea of Steve McQueen getting another nomination here for Blitz. Saturday Night, I don't know. The 10th spot, I don't know. There's some near misses there. I think Saturday Night is Jason Reitman's possibly best film since Juno when it comes to like Oscar voting. It's frantic. It tells a very important story of Hollywood, in this case television, and I think that it could get some votes. Honestly, I don't really think it's going to end up in the final 10, but also I don't know what that 10th spot is going to be yet. Really, after like 6. After Dune Part 2, I really don't know on this list. Right now, I've got Saturday Night in my predictions. Check back next month. Maybe it'll have fallen out of the 10. All right, then I'll just go through lead actress real quick. Angelina Jolie for Maria. Paulo Lorraine's kind of woman trilogy is wrapping up here. Important American Women trilogy, whatever you want to call it. Of course, with Jackie and Spencer. Wrapping up here with Maria. I think Angelina Jolie is just so graceful and is such a name in Hollywood. This is operatic in its nature, the film. She's going to be singing opera. I would assume she's singing her own songs. I'm supposed to see this one next week as well. I haven't seen it as time of recording. I think she wins. I think she's most likely to get nominated. Mikey Madison for Anora jumped up a couple spots for me, again, based on what I said about the film, just the reactions and how it's a star-making performance that is definitely worthy of a nomination, possibly even a win. She's really close there. I need to see Maria. I need to see Anora to kind of have an Oscar lens on it. Carla Sofia Gasson for Emilia Perez basically swapped with Mikey Madison here, but I think she still has a very, very good chance to be nominated. Cynthia Erivo for Wicked Part 1. That's the part that scares me. No pun intended. I think the performance of her as Elphaba is nomination worthy, or going to be nomination worthy. Another musical here. A very well-known musical, by the way. But it's a Part 1. So, is the Academy going to see that Part 1 and go, we can get her next time? You know, or let's wait and see how it turns out, and we'll kind of give her a cumulative nomination when Part 2 comes out. That worries me a little bit, but as of right now, I still have her in my 5. Amy Adams for Night Bitch. I haven't seen it. A lot of people have dropped her out of their top 5 or even top 10 because of the nature of the film itself. I think the Academy is going to embrace Adams' performance in her kind of retelling of motherhood, what it means to be connected to your children, to suffer because of your children. As a parent, I feel that. I think it looks like a very layered, funny sometimes, dramatic sometimes performance. And Amy Adams is an actress that is just, every time she acts in something that has Oscar buzz or otherwise, she delivers. And they've snubbed her too many times, Academy. I hope, and I'm leaving her in my 5, that she does not get snubbed for Night Bitch this year. The double-edged sword there is because of that, I don't know if Demi Moore is going to get nominated for The Substance. I've got her right outside of my 5 because at its core, it's a horror movie. Demi Moore is an actress who, you know, has been in Hollywood since the 80s. That documentary Bratz is on Hulu right now, which wasn't very good, but I mean, it does show you how she started. She's like 16, and her whole life has been in Hollywood, has been in TV and movies, etc., and just performing. She took a break from Hollywood. She had substance abuse issues, no pun intended. She comes back. She's been doing little projects here and there, and then this is the comeback. Her performance in The Substance is something to truly behold, and I think it is easily one of the best performances of the year, especially if you're just narrowing it down to female here as actress. But it's horror. I can't give the Academy the benefit of the doubt when they have bypassed actresses like recently, like Lupita Nyong'o, like Toni Collette. I mean, Mia Goth, they just too often brush aside a performance that is Excalibur because it was in a horror movie. You know, it's just, they don't go for it. I hope I'm wrong, but if Demi Moore gets into the 5, who is she taking the place of? Probably Erivo or Adams, honestly. Right now, I've got her right outside the 5. In that same vein is Nicole Kidman, very similar to Demi Moore, an actress who's been in Hollywood her entire life. I mean, she's a performer that everybody knows. We continue to see her just kill it every year after year after year, movies, TV, whatever. And in Baby Girl, it's a very 50 Shades of Grey-esque type movie, but with a little more indie feel, a little more kind of Oscar-y. And when you look at the trailer, a movie that I'm dying to see. And I think the Academy is she's going to get some votes. Nicole Kidman, she's one of those actresses that when she puts in a vulnerable performance like that, you can count on some votes from her, from the Academy. I don't know if it'll be enough to get her into the 5, but I feel confident in having her in my top 10 right now. Marianne Jean-Baptiste from Hard Truths. I left her there. I haven't done anything with her. I don't know virtually anything about this movie, frankly, and I have seen very, very little about her performance aside from like some stills in Entertainment Weekly, but she's a force, and I think that it would not be a surprise for her to end up in the nominees. Right now, I've got her in the top 10. I don't think she'll crack the 5, but again, I wouldn't be shocked. Speaking of Oscar snubs, when we mentioned Amy Adams, what about Danielle Deadwyler? Snubbed for her performance in Till, which honestly, I still can't believe what a performance that was in that film. In The Piano Lesson, I don't know if she's supporting. I don't know if she's lead. I don't know. So I'm leaving her in my lead predictions right now. And as you can see, she's down at number 9. This is also the case with Tilda Swinton for The Room Next Door, who I just put into my lead predictions here. This is another one that I know very, very little about. I don't really know if it's supporting or lead. So those bottom 2 are at the bottom of my predictions if they're considered lead performances. If they're considered supporting performances, and when we find that out, how they're being lobbied as such, that could change the entire game, because Dedgeweiler could go from 9 in lead to like 3 or 4 in supporting. And next thing you know, she's being nominated. So same thing with Tilda Swinton. I need to see these films. I need to hear how the studios and the producers are going to be campaigning her. Are they going to campaign these actresses in lead or supporting? I just don't know yet. Right now I have them rounding out my 10 for lead actress. All right, real quick for lead actor, Adrien Brody, with a bullet. Much like I said with The Brutalist, which I'm not currently predicting to win Best Picture, but that could happen eventually in my predictions as we get closer and closer to January. Adrien Brody, however, the feedback, the accolades, the clips in the trailer that just came out, by the way, as we're recording this yesterday, for The Brutalist, I think he's your winner this year. I think that I'm convinced. I am convinced. I think last month I had Ray Fiennes winning for Conclave and Coleman Domingo giving him a run for his money. Now I think it's really a 3-headed race with Brody, Fiennes, and Coleman Domingo. We'll see. These movies are rolling out staggered, very purposeful in their rollout. I haven't seen any of them yet, personally. I know some critics and some festival attendees have seen a lot of these. I have not as of yet. So I'm going on hunch. I'm going on what I hear from my friends and other pundits and periodicals that I've read, etc. And I think Adrien Brody has the momentum. He has the word of mouth right now. He's my pick. If that dies down a little bit, November, December, that might change. Because of that, Ray Fiennes, Coleman Domingo, and Daniel Craig all dropped down a spot. I left them in the same sequential order. I think that's pretty much the order of how it's going to go. Brody's going to win, or his biggest competition is Ray Fiennes. Their biggest competition is Coleman Domingo. And then their biggest competition is Daniel Craig. And then you have Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan. I'm a stan. I love Timmy. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, James Mangold directing a historical musician gets Oscar nominations. Just look at his resume. It just does. And, in some cases wins. Reese Witherspoon, for example. So I think that Timmy's going to take this seriously. He definitely looks like Bob Dylan. He sounds like him in the trailer. I mean, I know there's been some contention there. I think he sounds great, and there's definitely going to be some credit given to him for performing his own songs, performing Dylan's tunes, which are iconic. So, what's the narrative of the movie going to be? A complete unknown. Could be the issue that either helps or hurts Timmy. So I've got him in the final 5. And then to round out the 10, Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice, playing Donald Trump. I'm fascinated by this performance. I'm not a Trump fan, but it just fascinates me to take on such a iconic, frankly hated character in American society in an election year, coming out a month before the election. I mean, it's just crazy. I also shot Paul Mescal up for Gladiator 2 for a lot of the same reasons I gave you on the movie earlier. Just a lot of great feedback from that film. Joaquin Phoenix for Joker, Folie à Deux. Man, this is one I have seen that I wish I hadn't. I dropped him down. It's a great performance, don't get me wrong, but the movie is widely hated, and I didn't like it either. So it's hard for me to really say, yeah, let's give this guy an award, especially when he's already won an Academy Award for the same character. And I think what he did in the first film was definitely more Joker-y and spoke more to that character than what we get in Folie à Deux. He's still in my top 10, but frankly, I would be really surprised if he gets nominated based on the critical kind of hate for Folie à Deux so far. And then to wrap up my 10, I don't know what to put in these lead actor categories quite yet. So I still have Ethan Harassy, who is a young actor that's gives a star-turning performance, much like Mikey Madison from Anora in Nickel Boys. And then Gabriel LaBelle, who plays Lorne Michaels in Jason Reitman's Saturday Night, would round out my top 10. Do I think they're getting nominated? No, I don't. Do I have to put 10 on this list to make this a video? Yes, I do. So they are currently rounding out my top 10 for lead actor. And supporting actress is next. And that's another one that could be super interesting based on what some of these movie studios do with who they're campaigning for what. As it stands right now, I don't really know. So, with some of them, So Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez, I've heard steals the show. I've got her as the most likely to get nominated. However, the most likely to win, in my opinion, is Saoirse Ronan for Blitz. Big question mark with Blitz, just like I said with the picture earlier. But Saoirse Ronan, I mean, come on. I know a lot of people have her in their lead actress performance for The Outrun, which is a movie I did see, by the way, and her performance is possibly the best of her career, which is crazy to say because she's done some stuff. But it's not... I just feel like the appeal, the wide appeal, is not there for that movie. It would very much be like a Andrea Riseborough 2 Leslie situation if Ronan were to get nominated for The Outrun, because it's her performance versus a pretty mediocre everything else, which was similar in 2 Leslie, in my opinion. And Riseborough, not taking anything away from her performance, but she came up at the end and just like came in on nominations morning, and even the people that thought it might happen were shocked. It would have to be something like that because they're not pushing The Outrun. I haven't heard a lot of people aside from on Twitter and in the critical community talking about it. Like, nobody knows what it is. It wasn't wide released. I just don't think there's enough behind The Outrun to push her to a nomination for that. And I could be wrong. And frankly, if she did get nominated for The Outrun, it would be worthy. But I think her Oscar play this year is going to be for supporting actress in Blitz. Again, she could go and lead in Blitz. I don't know. If she does, that flips everything around. Maybe I'll have better clarity on that next month. Right now, I have her second to be nominated, but most likely to win in supporting actress. Felicity Jones with a bullet. Anytime you see The Brutalist, I've been shooting it up in my predictions because of everything I've been hearing. Same thing here. Selena Gomez for Emilia Perez. That would be 2 supporting nominees in the 5 from the same movie. It can happen. It does happen. So don't look at me too funny. Maria Bakalova, a previous nominee for comedy when she was in the Borat film. I'm just so fascinated by it. I mentioned it before, but playing Ivanka Trump here, I'm just so mesmerized by how it's going to turn out. And I think that in an election year, the politics, pun intended, and that time pun intended, could play into enough votes going over for her, especially depending on the outcome of the election. If Trump wins the election, maybe we're not nominating these people, or maybe the Academy's not. We'll see. And then to round out my 10, I don't know, and a lot of these have kind of dropped concurrently over the course of the last month and a half or so. Natasha Lyonne for His Three Daughters. I saw that. All 3 performances are great. I don't know how you pick one. I don't. I've heard people using Leone's name more than the other 2. I loved them all, but I've got her outside of my 5 now because I feel like all 3 of those performances are co-leads and they're all amazing in that film. So I just don't know. Ellis Taylor from Nickel Boys, a movie I mentioned earlier. She dropped down a little bit. I think it's still in the cards. I need to see it. Isabella Rossellini dropped down quite a few spots. She was in my 5 initially because of kind of her lineage in Hollywood. However, I've heard that she's not in Conclave very much. In fact, even a couple of you guys commented on my last video that you saw Conclave and that she's not in it enough to warrant a nomination. Now, of course, this happened before. I mean, even Anthony Hopkins was only on screen for like 14 minutes or something in Silence of the Lambs, and he won the Academy Award. I'm not sure what the screen time for Rossellini is, but based on what I've been hearing, even though it's probably a great performance, I've dropped her down outside of the 5. Lady Gaga, I moved from lead actress to supporting. Last month's video, she was in my lead predictions. This month, she's in my supporting predictions. Much like I said with Phoenix, I just don't think the reception for the film is strong enough to get anybody or anything, frankly, a nomination in that film, with the exception of maybe original song for Gaga, possibly something like production design or editing. Some technical stuff could be in there for Joker Folie à Deux. However, the movie has just critically been shit on. People don't like it. It's very, very divisive. So I just don't think that's going to translate well on Oscars morning. And then I just entered into my 10th spot because I don't know what to do. I don't know if some of those leads are coming over to this category. I don't know. So I got Joan Chen in there for a movie I saw recently. She plays the mom in Dee Dee. Loved it. Absolutely. One of my favorite movies of the year, by the way, is Dee Dee. You can watch it, I think, on Peacock right now. It's definitely streaming somewhere. Look it up. She's phenomenal in it. So good at portraying how a mom, a single mom especially in this case, basically sacrifices everything for their children, and it's a thankless sacrifice. The kids don't care. They don't thank you until it's time for them to reflect and go, oh, she's a great mom. And that movie has a lot of dick jokes, and it's like kind of played like a Superbad almost, but it has that beautiful mother story going in the background the whole time. And Joan Chen's performance was absolutely staggering. I loved it. So I just entered her in to my 10. I don't think there's enough push behind that movie either to get her into the 5, but I love that performance. I'm going to leave her in my 10 for as long as I can until I change things around. Just a couple more categories I'm going to go over today. Supporting actor. I have not moved Clarence Macklin yet. He was also my 1 last month, and he was my prediction to win. It's the same thing this month. He is playing himself, essentially, in the movie. He is not an Hollywood movie actor by trade. He performed in these prison theater productions, and this movie is about the troupe that he was a part of. So he's basically recreating what he lived through in his prison years as a convict. And to me, there's something special about that. I mentioned, I think, on last month's video, similar to like Nomadland, when you had actors and actresses portraying things that they were in real life, basically playing a version of themselves. And I think that story is too hard for the Academy to overlook. Will he win? I don't know, but for the second month in a row, I've got him winning right now for supporting. Kieran Culkin, bam, right there, runner-up. I said it earlier when I was talking about A Real Pain, which is a movie I'm going to see, I think, in like 2 weeks at a critic screening. I can't wait to check it out. I've heard his performances stand out 100 times beyond anything else in that film, and I'm really looking forward to checking it out. Denzel Washington has just shot into my top 5 based on that feedback last week from the screenings for Gladiator 2. Denzel, I should have known better. I mean, the guy always... everything he does is Oscar worthy, and the interviews that he has on press tours could be nominated for Oscars. I mean, the guy is a performer at heart, much like a Daniel Day-Lewis, where it's just like, that's just who he is. He is just an actor that gives the best performance every time the red light comes on, and I'm not surprised that he's hamming it up, eating it up in Gladiator 2. Samuel L. Jackson, I've seen a lot of people he's kind of vanished from a lot of predictions. I need to see The Piano Lesson. But if he's in a supporting role, I think he gets nominated. If he's in a lead role, I don't think he gets nominated. It's too heavy. It's too crowded. But supporting, and him losing back in 94 when he lost for Pulp Fiction, being a part of all facets of Hollywood, including the Avengers and Marvel franchise, and having such a big role there as Nick Fury, blockbusters and these indies, and in this case a musical or Broadway, or a play, I should say, that he was a part of on Broadway, and now it's a movie production. I mean, I don't know what the reception for The Piano Lesson is going to be yet, but if it's a positive reception, much like The Color Purple or something like that, and he's in supporting, like I said, then I'm going to feel better about this right now. But right now I've got him in my 5. Guy Pearce, I just added at the 5th spot. He wasn't even in my top 10 when I did this last month. I've been talking about The Brutalist this whole video. Everything I've heard from a ton of people I respect tell me that this movie is going to get rained down on nominations morning with nominations. And I think Guy Pearce is one of those for supporting actor. And then here you go to round out my 10. For supporting, Adam Pearson in A Different Man. That is very similar to Clarence Macklin, where Adam Pearson is basically playing himself, the disfigured gentleman that Sebastian Stan's in the movie with. And I also haven't seen that one, but you have a situation where it's a guy who's not a trained classical actor portraying a version of himself, just like I said with Macklin. So I think Pearson's name's going to be thrown around all award season. Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. The dude is an amazing actor on Succession, and I can tell that his kind of role in The Apprentice is going to be the non-Trump figure, but has the Trump-like qualities that possibly turn Trump into a monster that we know today. I mean, if you share my views, at least. So we'll see how that goes. Again, The Apprentice could be weird, because depending on how the election goes, it could get a ton of nominations or it could get nothing, depending on the outcome of the election, how political Hollywood wants to be. So we'll see. Drew Starkey for Queer, starring opposite Daniel Craig and Luca Guadagnino's gay romance. I think it's got Oscar written all over. I would love Challengers to get more love this season, honestly. But it sounds to me like Queer's probably going to get the most love from a Guadagnino perspective, coming up at the end of the year. etc. So I've got him in there. Stanley Tucci dropped down for Conclave. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this. I mean, John Lithgow has a lot of screen time. Tucci, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I need to see it. The PG rating scares me. I love Tucci. I would love for him to get nominated for literally anything because he's great. But we'll see. And then to round out my top 10, I left Willem Dafoe there for Nosferatu. Again, being that it's a horror movie based on a horror short film from 1922. I don't know. I don't think the Academy is going to go for it. Frankly, I don't. Now, I hope I'm wrong because I'm an egghead. I love Robert Eggers. I don't know. I just don't see it happening because I'm just so bitter about the history of horror and the Academy that it's just hard for me to put anything into my top 5. But I still have Dafoe floating around there in supporting actor. And then the last category I'm going to go over today on this video, because I'm doing the top of the line categories probably till we get to like December, January, and then I'll do some others. Director. Best Director, Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. People tell me I'm stupid. He's not going to win. He's going to be nominated, but he's not going to win. This, that. Part of me wants to leave him at number 1 all the way through Oscars morning, just because I want to say I told you he was going to win. However, it's starting to kind of creep into my psyche that they might be right from an Oscar perspective. I think he gets director as a nomination pretty easily because of the technical achievements and everything kind of that went into making the film. He's the director. He's the one in charge of all that. Right now, I've got him winning. It was a blockbuster film. It was lore that's been around forever and was made by David Lynch in the 80s, etc. So it's familiar to people that are voting. And when you go see this, especially if you saw it when it happened, like in IMAX or whatever, just, oh my God. I mean, like, the reason we go to the movies. You know, it was just a spectacle to behold. It's still my number 1 movie of the year. Denis Villeneuve. Now, the question is, can Denis win director if the movie doesn't win picture? And I don't think so. I should say I think so to make this video valid, because that's what I'm predicting. But it's wishy-washy at this point. His biggest competition, as I'm sitting here right now, I think is Sean Baker and Brady Corbet. Baker for Anora. I already talked about his quiet kind of resume and beautiful independent filmmaking that has not been nominated by the Academy a lot. Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, I have not seen, and I don't know a lot about Corbett in particular. But again, I'm going on that word of mouth. I'm going on my hunch from what I've been hearing by people I respect. And I'm very confident that he's in the 5 for director as I'm sitting here right now. Where we differ a lot is I'm still inching Edward Berger in there for Conclave. And that's really because of the All Quiet kind of surprises that we got for All Quiet on the Western Front. The BAFTAs, we weren't as surprised, but then come Oscars, everything that it got was surprising to a lot of people. I think that's going to continue. I think a lot of people are going to kind of sleep on some of the secondary categories for Conclave. Not that directing is secondary, but aside from like picture and probably acting or whatever, they're like, maybe not. I'm leaving it in my 5 because of the name Edward Berger. The Academy loves him. They loved All Quiet. I've already said that of all the films I've talked about today, aside from maybe The Brutalist, Conclave looks the most Oscar-y. Like, it looks like, let's make this for our friends at the Academy. So I feel good about it. And then you see how we're going to round out the rest here. Coralie Farjah for The Substance is an interesting one. I can't put her in my 5 because it is a horror movie. It is a body horror film. Of the names that I'm looking at on this screen right here, aside from maybe Villeneuve, she was the best director this year of the movies I've seen. She absolutely blew me away with The Substance. One of the most breathtaking, memorable, technically achieved films I've seen this year. But, and I hate to be the elephant in the room, but she's female. Let's look at the Oscars history there. It's a horror movie. I've already talked about that. Let's definitely look at the Oscars history there. I just don't know. Nothing would give me satisfaction more on Oscars morning than for a horror movie director to be nominated for a disgusting body horror film by the Academy. Should she be? Absolutely. Do I think they will do it? Probably not, but I've got her right on the fence, and I'm going to continue to kind of observe how the reception for the film is going closer and closer to January. It's going to be coming out on streaming soon, so a lot more people will be able to see it. Right now, I've got our number 6. And then to round it out, Steve McQueen dropped down from Blitz. He wasn't the top 5, like I said. Right now, I dropped him out of the 5. I put Ayoudard in there for Amelia Perez instead because I need to see Blitz. I've gotten burned by these predictions with Blitz every year because it just isn't coming out. So I need to see it. I've got Guadagnino for Queer, not moving. Robert Eggers for Nosferatu, not moving. And then I just put Ridley Scott in my predictions for Gladiator 2. He may actually end up making the 5. Ayoudard or Edward Berger perhaps might drop out, and then you'll have 2 powerhouses, Villeneuve and Ridley Scott, in the top 5. That could happen, and we'll see. As I'm going to see Gladiator in the next couple weeks, and I'm excited to check it out. There you go, guys. You can go to my website anytime, 2psonapod.com. I'll put the link down for you as well. You can go there anytime to see my Oscar predictions when I update them. I only do these videos once a month, but I have a spreadsheet where I frequently go in when I have these thoughts pop in my head, or I hear a review or an interview or a pundit say something, and I might update my predictions right there on the spot, and you can check those on the website anytime you like. That's it for this round of top of the line early Oscars predictions. I'll be back with the next video for that in November. Let me know what you thought. What did I get wrong? Who did I miss? Whose name should have been on the screen during this video for predictions? Let me know, because I take that stuff into consideration as well. And some of those comments actually played into these predictions for me also. I'll see you guys out here next time in the garage.